One of the most common discussions that I will have during players when they come to see me for a session will be around their pace control, and most players saying that feels like an area where they can make some improvements and see some gains in their putting performance. And players will then sort of go through and tell me, I guess, what their practice might look like and how they sort of practice pace control. And in nearly every situation, players will say things like, oh, I'll hit some putts of different distances and I might do a ladder type drill where I hit one putt from 10, one putt from 20, one putt from 30 feet. But when I get onto the golf course, I don't actually seem to be able to create the right club head speed for the putt that I'm hitting. So that's obviously clearly a common pattern that I see with people. And I think that conversation where they're describing what they do, the piece that's missing in the jigsaw there for me will be that there's no real kind of technical work on how to create the right club head speed. So putting's slightly different to the long game. You know, if you think about hitting a shot with a 6-iron, you create a certain amount of club head speed. Now, if you swing an 8-iron that's an inch shorter, you'll create less club head speed purely off of the fact that the club's a different length. So the engineering of the club, the length and the loft, determine you'll get a different outcome in terms of distance. Where we're putting, we've got one tool to hit all the putts with, whether that's 10 feet, whether that's 10 feet uphill, whether that's 20 feet downhill, whether it's 2 feet, whether it's 40 feet. So we've got to be quite adept at understanding how to create club head speed, understanding how to practice creating that club head speed, and then getting really good at being in situations and making the right judgments, picking the right club out of the bag if you want. So the exercise I've developed here that I quite like to try and navigate players towards gives them an ability to actually build some confidence and trust in being able to create the right club head speed and a consistent club head speed, that then they can go to the golf course and say, well, okay, I know I can be consistent with the club head speed I create. So if the ball's not finishing in the right place, it must be more down to now my judgment or my ability to appreciate a certain putt, whether that be uphill or downhill, or greens being a bit quicker or slower. So I'll walk you through the exercise here and how I like to do it. So I've got 3 golf balls on the green and a few tee pegs. And the first thing I'm going to do here is just pop a tee peg in the green to indicate where the putt's going to be struck from. And then using the grip length of my putter, I'm just going to measure 1 grip length back and 1 grip length through. So those tee pegs there are now going to indicate to me the size of stroke that I'm trying to make. So you can see that I've created a stroke that's 50-50. The putter's going to travel the same distance back as it does through. The second component we're going to link into that is the idea of your tempo and the rhythm of your stroke. So when I'm stood in here now, the aim will be to make a 50-50 stroke in length, but also a 50-50 stroke in time. So however long it takes the putter to make the backswing, it's going to take the same amount of time to make the downswing. So it's 1 unit of time back, 1 unit of time down. And a really simple way that you can start to understand and appreciate, I guess, your own rhythm and your own tempo will be to set yourself in opposite this tee peg and just make a few practice strokes there. And as I go back, I'm just going to sort of say 1, 2, with the aim being that when the putter's opposite the backswing tee, I say 1. And when it reaches the forward swing tee there, that's where I'm saying 2. So again, I can just get myself in there. I can just go back and go 1, 2. 1, 2. Now, the beauty of that is that when it comes to rhythm and tempo, there's no one-size-fits-all approach. We're all different. You'll know when you're playing a 4-ball, there'll be the guy that scurries off down the fairway fairly quickly, or you're playing a partner that talks a lot slower or faster. That's tapping into that person's individual rhythm and cadence. And I think you can tap into some of that with your putting. So once we've created that first stroke there, we're just going to roll a ball in opposite that first tee peg. Now, I haven't got anything on the green that I'm trying to putt to here. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to hit the putt and let that determine how far the ball goes. So my sole focus here is just to make a stroke that matches the length to those tee pegs, matches my 1-2 rhythm that I can say either out loud or just internally. I'm just going to let the ball go as far as it goes. So we're going to get ourselves in here, all opposite that tee peg there. 1 last practice stroke there, so it's 1, 2. Okay, we'll come into the ball and we're going to go 1, 2. Okay, so I've hit the putt there. Now, I'm not going to look where it's gone, and I think that's pretty important because I don't want to try to replicate that with my next putt. I want to try to replicate this piece down here. So realistically, if I bring another ball and hit it in a second, if I can replicate the length and the tempo, assuming my strike's half decent, the ball should end up in the right place on the green, or certainly in the same place as that first putt's gone to. So I'll bring that second ball in there, again, resisting the urge to look, pop the putt head in, down behind the ball there, and we'll just go 1, 2, okay? And again, I'm not going to look, I'm just going to drag in my third ball there, putter head in behind the ball, 1, 2. Okay, now I can take a little look up there. Now I can be pretty satisfied that those 3 putts have travelled the same speed and gone the same distance. So my inputs, my length of stroke and my tempo and my strike, the factors that are going to influence how far the ball goes, must have been consistent enough to give me the same outcome. Well, that's putting's version of standing on the range and flushing 3 7-irons and them all being sat side by side around a flag on the range. that's a great indicator that you know your baseline swing with that club creates that outcome. Now, you've still got to stand on the golf course and appreciate that a shot's uphill, or it's into the wind, or the temperature's colder, or whatever the factors might be, that they will influence that total distance. But knowing my baseline stroke, that this stroke length here at my tempo creates that outcome, it's a pretty good starting point. So I'm just going to walk up in here and pop a ghost hole where those 3 balls went to. So I've got my first stroke there created. Ball's going to go that far. Now, the second component here now will be to create a second stroke length. So just using a couple of different coloured T-pegs, just so that visually I can see them. We've obviously now got a much longer stroke, so the anticipation would be that the ball's going to go a lot further. The stroke's still 50-50, so the white T-pegs here now are just 2 grip lengths back and through, and they're still going to link into that idea of 1-2. So the 1-2 doesn't change in terms of its cadence. So when I was in on the short putt here, it was 1-2, and on the longer putt here, it's 1-2. There's no change in that. Now, the putter head obviously there has to swing a lot faster to travel more distance in the same time. So that's how we create the speed. We're not just hitting it harder, we're allowing the length of the stroke to create the speed for us. And that for me is a much more sustainable and predictable way of creating that speed rather than just putting more effort in with your hands. So I've described that idea of just hitting it harder would almost be like playing every par 3 with your 7-iron and just trying to hit it very hard or very soft, depending on the length of the hole. Well, it's much easier just to change club and have one consistency in terms of your rhythm and tempo. So we're not afforded that luxury here with a putter. We've got to change something. So the thing we're going to change is the size of the arc. So same idea again. I'm going to come back into the balls there, get myself set. So it's 1-2, 1-2. Right, that feels pretty good to me. So we'll go into the golf ball, set ourselves down, 1-2. So again, ball's gone up the green. I'm not going to look where it goes. So on those first couple of putts there, the sole aim here now, just putter in, 1-2, up the green. Both felt pretty good strikes, felt fairly similar in terms of my effort. Just visualising that stroke length, 1-2. And again, the third one here now I can look. And I can look up the green there and say, yeah, not too bad. I think ultimately the first 2 were clearly a bit better. The last one actually felt like I struck it a bit out the toe, which is potentially what's robbed me of some of the speed there. But I can now walk the green to this second putter, pop ghost hole in there. And what I've got now is a couple of putts that I can go back and recreate. So I should now, everything being equal, you know, nothing's changed on the green in the last couple of minutes since I hit these, get myself back into that first putt there, into this, so it's the first stroke length, the 1 grip length putt stroke here. So it's just 1-2. And I should, as I'll be able to look down there now, I'll be able to replicate that fairly easily. So the first challenge here, once we've set these holes, might be just to come back in and repeat it. So putter in, 1-2. Again, felt pretty decent. I can see there my ball speed control is really good, so I've got no issue there. Putter in again behind the ball, so 1-2. Maybe felt a little bit quicker in the through swing there, which is maybe why it's run on a bit. But again, I'd look at that as the balls have gone back to where they did when I set this with the first 3 putts there. So again, I've got the same inputs. So from a consistency standpoint there now, I've hit 6 putts to this first ghost hole, or excuse me, 6 putts with this first stroke size that have all gone to that ghost hole. So I'm doing the same thing. Like I said, that's standing on your TrackMan and hitting 3 7-irons that all pitch the same distance. Well, you know you've got the technical capacity to create the right conditions for the ball to go pin high, assuming you can then make the right judgment. So again, we'll collect that back down into the start point, and now I'm just going to hit 3 up to my second hole there. So again, same idea there would be get myself set. Just think about that 1-2. I can start to look down there now. Putts maybe run on, maybe 3 feet beyond the hole. Did feel a little bit quick in the downswing compared to my previous putts. So the challenge there, I guess, now is that I'm managing a different stroke length. And that's why I think this is important that you do this across different stroke sizes. It's not just about getting really good at one. In the same way, it's not just about getting good at hitting with a 7-iron. You have to be adaptable to be able to change. So I can take that into this next putt now. Just think 1-2. Right, okay. Let's try and lock that rhythm in. 1-2. That feels better straight away. As I look down there now, I've hit the ball exactly hole high, so that's perfect. So final ball in here now, get myself set. Again, that feeling of 1-2. That feels pretty similar to the last one, and I can see the balls rolled out. They're almost identical in terms of distance. So for me, this would be a nice starting point to any pace control work you do on the golf course. You're switching on the technical component of how to create club head speed. You're adding a little bit of variety in terms of making different stroke sizes. And the beauty of that then could be, as we've just seen there, if I can repeat an outcome, I can be pretty certain that when I get out onto the golf course, if I can't get the ball hole high, it's more down to my judgment, and then I can start to look at practicing on the green and hitting putts at different distances and putting up and down slopes. I think the secondary benefit to this kind of exercise can be, if you create the same stroke sizes every time you go to play, they can become a really good benchmark and can actually help you to calibrate for green speed. So, you know, if I was a member at a club, if I was back at Royal Blackheath where I'm based, I could go to the putting green there, I could stand on a certain point in the green and do this exercise, and the ball will travel different distances every time. The reason for that is because the green speed can change every day. That's something I need to be aware of before I get to the first green. And potentially, if you're putting just up and down hill, the slope's going to add some variability into that. So having a fairly flat baseline test you can go through to make sure that, one, you're controlling the components to help you create your club head speed with enough consistency to go and play, and two, have some awareness of whether the greens may be quicker or slower. I think that can form the start of really good work on your pace control before you then go and do the more performance related stuff where you're hitting different putts, changing the putt every time. So I think there needs to be a blend of both. For me, probably because they don't have a clear concept on it, players tend to focus too much on the latter part, just hitting putts with different distances and hoping it goes the right distance, without actually understanding what they can do from a technical aspect to control the outcome. I think for me, this is one of my favourite exercises. It's an exercise I'll get lots of players to think about, particularly if they've never had any structured focus on how to create club head speed. So give that one a go. I'll be really interested to hear how you get on with it. But I think this can definitely lay the foundations for better pace putting moving forwards.